Hello, I'm Dr. John Butler of Hypnotherapy Training International, and I've been training hypnotherapists for roughly 30 years. And I've been practicing as a hypnotherapist for roughly 40 years. I've been trained by Gil Boyne and several other eminent people in the field of hypnotherapy, and we follow the tradition of Gil Boyne and Dave Ellman in the work that we do. And these were really trailblazing pioneers, very gifted therapists in the field of hypnotherapy. I've often been asked, what are some of the main points about advanced analytical hypnotherapy that make it special and so important for hypnotherapists to learn? Well, there are many, and I will just give a very brief overview at the moment. Firstly, in comparison to long drawn out therapy, which may never really get to the deep-rooted issues in the mind, hypnotherapy, when it's used in this advanced analytical format, allows us to open up and go to the origin of the problems, to go deep into the mind where the problems exist and where the solutions also exist, because many of these problems have their origins in early life. In the first 5 or 6 years of life, we're often very much in the shadow of our parents, but at about the age of 5 or 6 for most children, they begin to be able to think more independently. And that's where some of those deep-rooted negative ideas start to emerge. Feelings of not feeling completely accepted by the parent, criticized, undermined, so on. And they can talk about that problem then for years in therapy, of not feeling unconditionally loved and so on. But advanced analytical hypnotherapy differs from counseling and hypnotherapy, psychotherapy, because we go to the origins of the problem, go deep into those fixed ideas, those negative emotions. And so there's a very powerful changing process that's initiated then. Through regression, the client is brought back to a very special form of reprocessing the material. Firstly, something called revivification occurs, which is more than just simply ordinary memory. So the client gets to be able to experience at a deep level the understandings and misunderstandings they experienced back then, and can begin then to form new understandings, healthier understandings, and change some of those fixed ideas. Because hypnotherapy brings a whole other level of power to the therapeutic process, you can then work very powerfully with the trapped emotions, with strong emotional catharsis, a release of any negative charged emotions and maybe having a lot of negative effects within the body as well. So there are great benefits to that process. And as the client experiences that family drama, the scenario in which problems were first acquired, they have a very deep understanding. And that understanding is at really many levels, including the emotional and cognitive levels, and deep at that core level of our creativity, our intuitive inner being. Now, as all those changes are initiating the therapy, the client, through uncovering and release of emotion, can understand the truth about the feelings and their origins in the fixed ideas. And as we often say, the truth sets you free. That deep understanding then allows them to move forward and begin to bring more closure. Of course, there are many steps in this process that a therapist needs to learn, which is why comprehensive training in this work is so necessary. Otherwise, we're simply taking the client back to the old problems, maybe even just reinforcing them. And that is not a good, healthy therapeutic process. Now, there is a great deal of evidence for this kind of therapy. It's been practiced by some of the most eminent people in psychology and psychotherapy, where it was known as ego state therapy. But of course, bringing the hypnotic power and punch into the process gives it a whole other level of efficacy. And so we have Gestalt dialogues, we have a reliving of certain kinds of events, and processes go on there, which leading then to bringing forgiveness to oneself, to others, discharging at a very deep emotional level, shame and guilt, so that the client really can properly move forward, as opposed to just talking about forgiveness and talking about shame and guilt for years in therapy, and often saying, well, I understand it better, at least intellectually, I have some better feelings, but I'm still very largely stuck in the past. So with this closure that comes very uniquely from deep analytical hypnotherapy, the client really begins to move forward. They begin to get integration between different parts of the experience, different parts of their mind. And so the emotional and cognitive are brought together, and the intuitive and deeper levels of setting the goals and the values for their lives now can begin to be developed. So the client has a new understanding really of themselves. With that, there are several other steps that are so important as they begin to commit to readiness for change, which may not have been possible before. The client talks a lot about change. We often know that in therapy, but is often fearful of change and reluctant to change. And so readiness for change can really be speeded up dramatically, sometimes even in that one session or in a very short number of sessions with follow-up work. Maybe they have 2 or 3 regression sessions to deal with many different unpleasant or traumatic or sensitizing events. And so our goal now is to get the client to be able to accept the programming properly, the new programming based on what they've revealed. Remember, up until then, we really don't know what suggestions that are precise and appropriate for that client. We've been giving them the best suggestions we can, which is often very helpful, but it's only through that uncovering and regression work that we can really know what's the most tailored, most effective for that client. At that point then, as the client commits to their process of change, they go forward in the therapy and into their lives, and the life becomes a process of growth and development, and that's where they begin to free themselves from dependency on the therapist. They can always come back to have some booster sessions, or if other problems emerge in life, the door is open, of course, but instead of being years in therapy and falling into maybe dependency, as it can happen with long-term psychotherapy, the client becomes their own therapist and goes forward in life to have a much more fulfilling, rewarding, and successful life. I hope you will join me on our next analytical hypnotherapy course, which is in the beginning of February on our website, Advanced Analytical Hypnotherapy, and to learn about this incredibly powerful and valuable form of therapy. I look forward to seeing you then. Thank you very much for listening and watching.